Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundlesssuccess to join today. Let's get you to the next level.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And last week, Dr. Lopkin, we devoted, 90% of the time, our time, and our listeners' time to DOGE. And we're not going to do that this week, but it's certainly a significant part of what we'll be discussing, and rightfully so. So right off the top, for your comment, DOGE, the lawsuit, basically, it did not work out the way the Democrats wanted. Did not get the temporary stay. And by the time it all plays out in the process, DOGE's job or assignment will be over when Trump. And also, I just want to interject. We talked about the governor of Connecticut saying that all the illegals are welcome in Connecticut, a state that hasn't attracted a business, let's say, since I've been out of college, before then, actually. It was part of that lawsuit as well. Do they have better things to do in Connecticut, like maybe get one company to come to Connecticut? But no, they're part of the lawsuit. So your comments.
Well, this is just a continuation of the Democrats' lawfare against Donald Trump. Now it's not, they're not trying to bring criminal charges against him and make up, cases. Now they're trying to use the courts to stop all of his programs. But so far, the Democrats have been wiped out on their lawsuits against DOGE. And it's primarily for two reasons. One, a lot of these have been thrown out because they didn't have standing to file in the first place because they weren't a party to it. And two, they have completely failed to show any imminent danger in what's happening. Basically, the Democrats are trying to use the courts to prove that the head of the executive branch does not legally have the ability to run the executive branch. And there's no precedent for that. There's no legal backing for that argument, and they're losing right and left.
Yes, and isn't it a bigger issue? Not a bigger issue. Isn't it interesting? That's the right word. Sorry about that. That it was an Obama judge that ruled this way. That shows you, to your point, the lack of any credibility in the Democratic side. But how does this play in Peoria? That's the real issue, Doctor. And that is, how does Ma and Pa Kettle out in the Midwest or whatever view these crazy people swearing? I heard Newt Gingrich saying, reflecting on our educational system, these people are the leaders, Congress people, using F words. Like, really? But here's the bigger issue, though. How does it look that the party is defending transgender, theater in Uzbekistan? It's like, and then like 500 million on circumcisions in a Muslim country. It's like,
they're
what
losing
smoking do?
They're losing their minds about protecting government waste and fraud. That is
what they have, to your point.
That's what they're doing. And again, we said this before the podcast started in our prep, and I can't remember who said it, but essentially the Democrats created a fourth branch of government, the administrative branch. And that's just the bureaucracies. And that's the only power they have left. So they are desperately trying to protect it. And you said, how's it going to play in Peoria? It's not playing well. Real Clear Politics has already started predicting that the worst case scenario for the Republicans in 2026 still has them holding on to the Senate. They don't see any way that the Democrats, if they stay on this path, are going to flip enough seats to take the Senate.
Oh, yeah. And there's also some projections that the Republicans actually keep the House as well.
Yeah, which would be an abject disaster for the Democrats, because if that happens, they're going to be, I mean, we've already said there's a good possibility they're going to be in the weeds for 4 to 8 years. That's just going to extend that.
They're actually even in the process as we speak of being a coastal party. Your thoughts? When you really look at the map, you look at their influence, it's a coastal party.
Yes, they have lost all influence in the center of the country, with the exception of Illinois. And what's really amazing is that if you look at the district by district voting, even on the coasts, there was not a single district in the country that didn't shift to the right in the last election. They didn't win all the districts, but they picked up more votes. The Democrats lost influence in every election district in the country.
Yeah, so let me just interject one thing on that. Senator Kennedy was very good with the quips, said basically the current Democratic Party is 10 exits away from normality. I love that.
That's a good one. And
let's just cut this shit.
And James Carville has basically said the same thing. He released a rant the other day, basically yelling at the Democrats for wasting his life, because this was his life's work and they turned around and now they're being held hostage by the radical left and everything he done has been a waste. And this is him saying
very
it, not me.
Getting back to what, and yes, I agree with that, and I've heard that. And it's very interesting also how things have changed for the worse for the Democratic Party. It was Clinton Gore, 2002, had all the sheets of paper talking about all the waste, blah, blah, blah. And fast forward 24 years later, they're against cutting waste. I mean, the party, I'm not as optimistic as you are. Sorry, I'm just not. I think it could be longer than 8 years. I don't see anyone.
Oh, it could be.
Yes. I mean, it is off the hook. These people are insane. They don't know what they're talking about, and they're grasping at straws. They're desperate. And then even like irresponsible remarks by Jeffries, the speaker for the Democrats in the House, in the majority, or whatever it is, and he's basically, we're going to fight them in the streets. Like, what are you, back at Woodstock or something?
Right. It sounds like they're calling for open revolution. Now, I don't think they are, because quite frankly, only an idiot would call for open revolution on the side of the left, because one, they're not the side with the guns, but the last elections also showed they would be vastly outnumbered. So it would be the height of stupidity to call for something like that.
Yeah, but you're assuming that they think logically.
Right, and yet that's what it sounds like. But take a really good look at the history of the last 30 years or so. Bill Clinton fired 350,000 federal workers. He was trying to cut government spending. Barack Obama had a massive plan to cut government spending. Simpson Bowles provided a workflow to cut government spending under the Obama administration. Obama was known as the deporter in chief, having deported more illegal immigrants than any president to date. The Democrats were all for it. Now, Trump is actually doing what those presidents tried to do, and it's a constitutional crisis. Oh my God, we can't allow it.
Yeah, but I think it's even yes, that's a point, a very good point, but it's also the reins of power. There's tremendous kickbacks funneling to Democratic causes. If they lose this, you talk about being in the woods for 8 years. Like I said, it might be a lot longer than 8. You cut off the funding, they're screwed. That's all they have.
Well,
They've lost ideas.
It's not just Democratic causes. We're already starting to see, thanks to DOGE, that a lot of the money that U.S. aid was spending was going to NGOs, non governmental organizations, which sounds fine. That's what they were meant to do. Except now we're finding out that a lot of these NGOs are being run by the spouses and families of prominent Democrats, of Democratic judges. The one of the few judges that actually sided with the Democrats on stopping the budget, on the cost cutting, and said no, Trump doesn't have the right to to freeze funds. Turns out his wife runs one of these NGOs that's getting the money.
Well, another point I have to make is you talk about U.S. aid, it's USAID. The press liberal press likes to call it U.S. aid because people will think, oh, they're cutting you. No, they're cutting USAID. Yes. And the head of that is, I believe her name is Samantha Powers, a longtime bureaucrat, probably makes her stated salary $150, $160. How does that? You're the doctor. How does she work $20 million running so-called nonprofits?
It is absolutely amazing how they've turned these salaries into fortunes. And again, it's because of slush funds, expense accounts, things like this. Things that when corporate America does it, the government comes down on them. How dare you? But they're doing the exact same thing, and the Democrats are fighting to keep it going. I have a cousin who used to work for the New York State Insurance Authority. One of these government agencies, state agency, not federal, but still, they all work on the same principles. And if you ask him how many people worked in his office, his standard answer was about half. and let me tell you something. My cousin was not one of the half that worked. And he kept his job despite his bosses trying to get him out because the unions protected him. That's what this is all about. It's protecting people. It's not about benefits for Americans who need it. It's about getting rid of the workforce that isn't doing anything.
Yes, and it's contrary to the Democratic philosophy. And I think another reason over the last 20 years is the shift of where they're coming from. I don't think in the Democratic leadership there's anyone that's actually worked a day in their lives in the private sector. They don't know anything about it. They don't know anything about cost cutting or cutting people. What are you, crazy?
They obviously don't
print
know
more money.
They don't know how businesses work, and they need to be held to the same standards as private companies. Now, you're a teacher, so you'll appreciate this, but I said to someone the other day, I really wish I had enough ready cash to do this, but I would like to buy for every elected Democrat a copy of Atlas Shrugged and then start calling them to make sure they've actually read it.
Yeah, that would go over big, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's and for those of our audience who haven't read Atlas Shrugged, which unfortunately is probably about 99% of the country at this point, it used to be required in high schools and hasn't been probably in about 30 years. I don't even think I had to read it back when I was in high school. But it is all about the dangers of socialism and of government taking too
You
much
say, whoa,
control.
doctor. You think the Department of Education would have anything to do with that?
Oh, of course not.
That's diametrically opposed to what their mission is. What are you, crazy? Capitalism?
Yes, I mean,
nuts?
Everybody, I honestly believe everybody should read Atlas Shrugged. And if you can't read Atlas Shrugged, at least go on Amazon Prime and watch the miniseries adaptation. It's not as good as the actual book, but you'll get the idea.
Well, speaking also about, we talked about that Samantha Powers, I believe her name's the head of the USAID. Went with 150 to make 20 mil. That's, you got to be a damn good investor. But how about Pocahontas, Liz Warren? She makes 160, which is good, but it's not out of control money. And she's worth like over 12 million. How does that happen? I thought she was a socialist.
Yeah, I mean, she's a socialist until it comes time for her to make money. And that's, it's the same thing with Bernie Sanders. It's the same thing with AOC. Remember when AOC took office, she was complaining that she didn't have enough money to pay for her Washington apartment and her Tesla. Which, I mean, let's face it, if you can't afford it, you don't need a Tesla. But now, when was the last time you heard her complaining about money? Because now she's a millionaire.
I'm sure she is. Yep. It's actually, in a lot of ways, working for a living kind of sucks. Make a lot more money to screwing around in government. Jeez, I didn't know that. Oh, well, in another lifetime. They're also looking at, and before we went on the air, they were flashing a news bit about a supposed windfall or savings dividend from DOGE. Your thoughts? I think it's brilliant, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, this was an idea floated, I believe, yesterday by Elon Musk to take all of this money that they're clawing back and actually give a check to every American who paid taxes as a rebate. Now, politically, it's a brilliant idea. I'll be honest with you, I'm not in favor of it. I would much rather see them take all that money, pay down the debt. This way, we can cut taxes on a more permanent basis rather than a one-time check, because right now, servicing the debt is the largest part of the federal budget. So let's cut the debt, stop having to pay all of that interest, and then we can actually cut taxes on a permanent basis so everybody is paying less taxes every year.
I agree with you 100%, but I think in the short term, because to continue the momentum, it would not be a bad idea for everyone to get a $250 check. I think that would put the knife right through the heart of any kind of democratic resistance.
A $250 check is nothing. They're actually speculating that if they were to do this, these would be $5,000 checks.
Oh, I'm sorry. I agree. No, technically, logically, fiscally, you're 100. They do that.
They do that. Who's going to vote Democrat now? Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. Wait a second. And also talk about must-see TV. You got to get popcorn with some good butter. Their heads would be exploding.
It would.
There
The
has
the only thing is I am 99% confident that this could not be done by Trump and DOGE. It would have to be done by the Republican Congress, and they would have to stay lockstep because they don't have enough of a majority to lose more than, I think, 3 votes to push that through.
possible, by the way, though. With
It's
the
it
power of
is
Trump,
possible.
it is very possible. And plus, the three could be closing soon because you got in Florida. That looks like that's going to get resolved pretty quickly. In New York, Hochul's doing her best to screw around, but that's not going to go on forever. So anyway, I even think that the way it is, it's certainly within reason. Then you have, correct my pronunciation, Plantier from the.
I think it's Palantir, but I'm not
It
100%
is
sure.
Palantir.
Yeah.
You are correct. He's an whiz, financial whiz, technology whiz, really knows AI. He was talking about the unique and first time opportunity with AI to move DOGE ahead at lightning speed by computers talking to computers. He also talked about the Democrats, who he was a Democrat and a liberal has turned into a pagan religion. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he's right. It has, and again, a number of Democrats have come out and said this. Now I'm blanking on his name, but the Democrat who actually ran a primary against Biden, Dean something. I can't think of his name.
Yeah. No, he's actually, now that's someone that actually, I don't think he has any chance because of the psychosis of the Democrat. He actually, I think, would play well in Peoria.
I believe he will. Actually, I'll go you one further. If the Democratic Party had actually gone by the results of their primary when Biden stepped out, the nomination would have been Dean's. I think he might have been able to hold the party together and beat Trump. But they gave it to Harris, who couldn't form 2 sentences.
Well, we're going to flip for a second. You're good for that. Speaking of keeping 2 sentences together, Mamala appeared on Broadway and I would say she had maybe a couple too many Chardonnays and put together a word salad that I don't think Einstein could understand.
Yeah,
I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea what you was talking about.
She was trying to give an inspirational speech to the cast of the Louis Armstrong musical.
Jesus.
And it came across so bad that the cast members started referring to her as drunk Auntie Kamala.
Really? I did not know that part of it.
Yes. It's like it was one for the ages. Again, going on and it's funny. Someone was saying like her husband's nodding. He was saying, yeah, if you really love your wife, you'd probably whisper in her, let's go, dear. She was making a fool of herself. I'm like, out of her mind. I don't know what the hell you're talking. We dodged a bullet. We would be in nuclear war by now. We did. Although it looks like not everybody has dodged the bullet, because according to the recent polls, she's actually the front runner to become the next governor of California.
Oh, no, I think that's, something I thought about that. Obviously, I have too much time on my hands. That is a great thing. Hold on. I want your comment on that. I'm glad you brought it up because she's great. And it's not my own theory. I've heard this. She's great at the trappings of power, but she really doesn't want to put the work in. So if she's given, or if she wins the governorship of California, that means she actually has to work. I think it's going to hurt her. You heard here, Jeffrey L. Sherman just said that. It will not help her. It will hurt her because it will put the bright spotlight on her, and she is in case she couldn't handle the San Diego Zoo getting a new lion.
No, I think given the state of California and the predicament they're in, the only thing that could make their predicament worse is electing Kamala Harris as governor. And
It
there's
would be
no
fantastic.
there'd be nowhere for her to hide because again, this the same way that Newsom has self-destructed as soon as anybody looked at what happened in California, her career would be done. That would be the last anybody heard from her.
Yeah, and all it would really take, Dr. Locken, is a crisis. I don't know, an earthquake, not a major, just any little thing when she has to talk, off
What
the
what
cuff.
earth
It would,
what earthquake? All it'll take is another brush fire, and they have them every year.
it would. But it's, and it, just on that same subject, she was a major fundraiser and operative of the Democratic Party, Lindy Lee, and she was saying just recently, I'm talking hours ago, so to speak, that Kamala's dead, that there's no major donors, and that's what the Democrat leadership depends on and is fueled by. Will give a dime to her. She said that Kamala gaslighted them, blew $1.5 billion, and party over, game over. Your thoughts?
Yeah.
And she also said, the same person, Linda Lee, said that the Biden presidency was really the third term, no surprise, of Obama.
Yeah, Linda Lee raised a small fortune for the Democrats, and she has stated she will never do so again. And she's not the only major donor to say this. The Democrats lost credibility with their donor base. And you can't run campaigns without a donor base. And let's not forget that in 2015, I think 2015, definitely 2016, the DNC was practically bankrupt. Hillary Clinton bailed them out, and that's why she ran in 2016. That's why they gave her the nomination in 2016, basically rigging the elections against Bernie Sanders. Because if you take a look at the voters would have preferred Sanders. Now, Sanders didn't have a chance in hell of beating Trump either, but you know, if the DNC was that close to bankruptcy already, and now they've alienated their donor class, and now there's a major backlash against Soros owned companies. So he may not be in a position to bail them out.
I think that's a very good point. I think his reign of terror is pretty much over with Trump. Speaking of reign of terror, I wonder if NPR won't be soon to go either. But that's another subject. Hopefully, with any luck, yes. I used to watch or listen to Wait, Don't Tell Me. I haven't listened to. I can't bring myself to listen to NPR. But that's just me. Again, just circling back on the DOGE topic and just finish up on two things and just let the good doctor have free reign. Blank checks at the at several departments totaling $4.7 trillion, and then Social Security. And a couple Democrats were saying that DOGE is heartless because they're going after our most vulnerable people, and they were referencing Social Security paying out billions to people over 150. I want to see them because I want to get on their diet program because you got to be in really awesome shape.
Absolutely. And you know, I'll take the Social Security one first. Yes, the Social Security system has people who are very clearly dead, but they do not have death dates for them. Now, in some of these cases, benefits are being paid to dead people. But quite frankly, that's just where it starts because the Social Security database is used by just about every government agency that provides funding for people, food stamps, Medicare, Medicaid, all of the. So it's not just oh, we're sending out a couple of payments that, we shouldn't have. You're talking about a massive amount of money going out through all of these programs that God only knows where it's going. Now, we do know, I believe it was about 6 years ago, Ron DeSantis led a task force in Florida because Florida happens to have more Medicare fraud based out of there than anywhere else. Why? Because they've got a very senior population. But they went after these folks and they clawed back billions of dollars in Medicare fraud. This is the database that was allowing that to happen, and we never addressed it. So yeah, you're not talking about taking away grandma's social security check. You're not even talking about cutting her Medicare benefits,
You
which
might
by
improve the status.
which by the way, Biden did cut Medicare benefits. The Democrats will never tell you about that. But you're
Of
talking
course they
about
won't.
cutting the fraud, cutting all of the money that's just floating out there without being accounted for. Now, the 4.7 trillion, I found this was fascinating because apparently in the Treasury system, the field, the accounting field to put in what project this or what agency or whatever it is that this money is going to. Somebody had created this as an optional field. You didn't have to fill it out, which basically allowed them to send out money to pet projects without tracing it. Now, this was a very easy fix for DOGE. That is now a permanently required field, so you can't do that anymore. But now they're going to have to go through the books and track down $4.7 trillion in unaccounted for funds. Now, fortunately, we're not talking about cash, so it's not impossible to trace.
Okay, you don't think there's going to be further egg on the Democratic operatives' face? We know all this, like, lesbian encounter groups and blah blah blah.
Oh, I'm sure it will, and I'm sure you're going to find some of it. This that went to programs being run by spouses and family members of Democrats, and I keep saying Democrats, but let's face it, the Republicans' hands aren't entirely clean either. I'm sure you'll find money going to their families as well. The difference is the Republicans are the ones now pushing to clean it up, where the Democrats are fighting it.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I'm not naive, and you're 100% correct. Republicans, they have blood on their hands too, so to speak. But the overwhelming majority of the graph is part. The Washington bureaucracy is another outreach of the Democratic Party. Let's just get right down.
Yes,
brass tacks.
yes, it is. I mean, let's face it. The Democrats have set things up so that they have essentially 5 branches of government. You've got the executive branch, which they lost when Trump won. You've got the legislative branch, which they lost when they lost the Senate and the House. You've got the judicial branch, which they lost when the Supreme Court had more conservatives added to it. But the Democrats added the administrative branch, which is just the bureaucracy. And these are the folks that were caught in 2016 saying, we will do everything in our power to keep Trump out of office.
That is correct.
Yes, they failed. And they've got the 5th branch, which is the media.
Which is also failing. Let's talk about that. You had, and it's becoming much more common. It used to be an anomaly, right? You had CNN just recently, I think it's Stephen Miller. It was a takedown of CNN. I mean, the old shtick is kind of over that they would eviscerate a conservative. Almost the tables have turned. First of all, do you agree with that? And second of all, your reason why, if it is true, why is it happening?
The tables have turned. And I think there's two reasons why it's happening. One is that today's journalists are not being trained properly. Back in the day, when a journalist was going to interview somebody, they had facts, they had charts, they had graphs. They were ready for anything the guest was going to, come back with. That's no longer the case. These reporters are woefully unprepared for dealing with a standard interview. The second thing, I think the big turnaround was when J.D. Vance said, "Did you hear what you just said?"
I love with Martha Raddatz.
Yes, with Martha Raddatz. This basically gave the conservatives, the Republicans, the MAGA, whatever you want to categorize it as, the green light to go, wait a minute, we can fight back. We don't have to, say, oh, well, you're the reporter, it's your show. It's like, because they're starting to realize that without the guests, these reporters don't have a show. So if you start saying, well, you know what? You're not asking fair questions. We're not going to bother with you, as Trump has done numerous times. They end up, their ratings are in the toilet because they're speaking only to the converted, and they're hitting the same thing over and over again, failing to realize that the American people have already seen through it.
Yeah, I actually, to one of your points, I'm a little perplexed of why even show up on this stupid show. Bleed them dry, drain the so-called swamp of their revenue. Just have it in an echo chamber that no one's going to watch. Why even go on? Why even indulge him? Like, Stephanopoulos, really? You want to feed that beast?
It is actually a good strategy to go on these shows. Because if you take a look at some of the results, I mean, take a look at the entire Trump campaign. Most of his campaign was going to places he knew he wasn't going to win, but he went to talk to the people and to say, this is what I'm actually saying. Pay no attention to what the media is telling you. You saw Tim Scott get a fantastic response from people after blowing away the women on The View. You saw J.D. Vance's, numbers just skyrocket when he started talking back to the press. So there's a big upside to what they're doing. And, yes, the press isn't getting any, enough play out of it, but the American people are paying attention.
I know. Speaking of J.D. Vance, I think it was brilliant, and I think he is not but a rising star, obviously, in the Republican Party. Something the Democrats cannot say. All their rising stars are basically about to go into the sunset, but that's another issue unto itself. What he did in Europe, I think, was fantastic. Bitch slapping him. I think it was great.
I love, again, talking about the media. The liberal media is trying to portray it as, putting distance between us and Europe. And they've said Putin is trying to separate America from the EU. And it's like, no, take a look at the EU. They have been relying on us for defense. They've been relying on our markets for commerce. And yet, everybody talks about, the Trump tariffs, the Trump tariffs. Every American good faces tariffs in Europe. You don't see American cars in Europe because the tariffs make them unaffordable. But you see European cars here all the time because we have no tariffs against them.
Yeah, but it's also, hold on. It's not like a trivial point. I just had to interject. Even if it's not overt tariffs, it's under the water level terrorists, like regulation, things that our companies have to jump. So there are overt terrorists, no question. But there's, like in Japan's awesome at that. They might have, which they don't, but they might have on the appearance of very little tariffs. Good luck selling an American car in Japan. Yeah, call me when it's over. I'll be dead.
Right. There's all the regulations our companies have to jump through. But I mean, even more than that, the thing is, everybody says, well, but these are our allies. These are our allies. Look at what our allies are doing. The British government just tried to get Apple to give them access to everybody's iCloud accounts, not British citizens' iCloud accounts, everybody's. They threatened to go after American citizens if we badmouth what their policies were on social media. We just saw on 60 Minutes, Germany will go after you if you insult somebody on social media.
Okay, well, I have to interject one thing on that. Yes, the 60 Minutes. Did you find it interesting that 60 Minutes basically took the side of the Germans?
I found it horrifying. CBS News has apparently declared war on freedom of speech because the 60 Minutes interview, they were saying, well, yes, we're cracking down on freedom of speech because we need to protect people, and CBS is going, oh yes, that makes sense, yes. And earlier in the day on Face the Nation, they said to Mark Rubio that freedom of speech was weaponized to create the Holocaust. And fortunately, Mark Rubio is smart enough to go, no, there was no freedom of speech in Nazi Germany. You don't know what you're talking about.
I have to interject one thing. You talk about the qualifications of our journalists. An eighth grade would know that, no, it wasn't too much. What are you smoking? And she has Face the Nation? Are you kidding me? Right. Are you effing kidding me?
And yes, that goes back to what I was saying about the qualifications of journalists. These are not reporters from the days of Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite. No. These are people that think that X is a primary source.
It's unbelievable. Now, on a somewhat lighter note, we have Tom Hanks, someone I liked even when maybe I was in college. He was doing Bosom Buddies, and it was kind of a stupid show, but yeah, Splash was his first movie, big, obviously Forrest Gump. Yeah, he was really the hero of many common people, I would have to say, regular Joes and Janes, right? And what he pulled on Saturday Night Live was really creepy. And I'm not just saying it because I'm, obviously I'm biased in certain ways, but it was really insulting. I mean, I know what he was thinking about. I don't really know or care if he cares. He's already worth $1 billion. I think his career is over. How do you like that, Dr. Loppin? Put the fork in. It's over. You wait. When he comes out with another movie, I don't know, whatever, Nancy Goes to College, whatever the hell it is, and you'll see the thing crash. Well, Mark my words.
In all fairness, take a look at his career over the last several years. He used to be the golden boy. You put Tom Hanks in a movie,
anything.
You broke records. He hasn't been in a successful movie in years. And I think the SNL skit, I don't think it reflected as badly on him because basically he's the actor. They hand him a script and he reads it. I think it goes to show that the folks at NBC, that the folks at SNL have not learned their lesson that the American people have had it with this.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. A very good point, Doctor, about SNL. They actually wrote this and thought, oh, that's really going to be funny. It's like Bud Light saying a transsexual will be awesome for our market, and what BMW or was a Range Jaguar The
Jaguar,
transvestites
yes.
are excellent. Yeah. But it's still you are Tom Hanks. You have the option to say yay or nay. He could have had no. He was totally on board with it. He's been indoctrinated. He's living in the Chardonnay parties of Martha's Vineyard in the West Coast. He could have been at one time, the man of the people, whatever you want to call it. That ship has sailed. He's an elitist piece of shit, and he had the option to say, I don't know about that one. Even if he had no, and even not shaking the black, but that's just off the hook. It is off the hook. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to think, and quite frankly, I can't name any of his more recent movies. I cannot think of. He hasn't been in any blockbusters in quite a while, and I think maybe he's been more behind the scenes. But I mean, I just pulled up on my screen the Internet Movie Database, IMDb, and it's known for Castaway, 2000, Big, 1988, Philadelphia, 1993, Forrest Gump, 1994. Has he done anything as an actor in the 21st century that anybody cares about?
I think the last movie he did was about the U-2 plane, but that's over 10 years ago. I mean, I'm being nice. That's about, I think it might be 15 years ago when he played that was not a blockbuster. That was a decent hit. So to your point, it's not mincing a little minutia. He hasn't really done shit in 20 years. Let's just get right down to it.
Yeah, I mean his most recent movies, Freaky Tales, Asteroid City.
Never heard of it.
Yeah,
Asteroid City.
Asteroid City.
Okay, never heard of that.
A Man Called Otto.
Never heard of that.
Motivated. Pinocchio.
Never heard of that.
Oh, excuse me. Motivated is a podcast, not a movie.
Okay.
Pinocchio. He played Geppetto.
That bombed.
Yeah. Elvis. He played Colonel Parker.
Okay, that was a big hit, relatively.
I don't know.
But he didn't have the lead.
Yeah, I don't know that it was a big hit, but Finch.
It was, no, you're right. It was actually not. It was okay.
He was a lead role in Finch, the title character. I've never even heard of it.
Finch?
Yes, Finch.
Okay.
And we're going back. We're now reaching back to 2020 already. So, I mean, his career is not what it once was. I think they handed him the script. He went, well, hell, I got nothing to lose. I've got no career left anyway.
That's why you're the doctor. I think it's not exactly.
Like, I've got billions.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not like Forrest Gump, Tank 2. If he had a career, I think you're 100% correct. He would have maybe thought twice.
Right.
Like, what the hell? I don't give a shit. I mean, next thing, I didn't even heard of these movies. I haven't heard of one of them. Finch, what is that about? I don't even want to know.
The only one of those I heard about was Pinocchio.
I think the last one he did when he was really kicking ass was called Bridge of Spies, but you're talking 15 years ago. So it's been a while. But it has not been a while. Oh, by the way, one last thing I'd like to interject on a more serious one is, what do you think about drones flying over Mexico? Is that a precursor for maybe something happening, Doctor?
Oh, it's not just a precursor. It is the first wave.
There you go.
Despite what the governor of Mexico has been spouting, the Mexican government overruled her and gave Trump the ability to send special forces into Mexico to deal with the drug cartels.
And it's going to happen.
This is going to happen. They approved this just over the last few days. So at some point, yes, the drug cartels have been declared by the U.S. government to be a terrorist organization. The Mexican government gave the United States the ability to send special forces in to take care of them. So yeah, we're at some point, our special forces guys are going to go in and blow away the drug cartels.
Well, I have to ask you one final question. It's almost a rhetorical, probably beneath the doctor, but I have to say it anyway. Where does this leave Uncle Joe? Like, will anyone even know Uncle Joe or think of Uncle Joe in another 6 months? I know he hired, or he got, or he's part of a talent agency now.
Yes,
but so is my cat.
He just hired a talent agency. I forget which one.
Who cares? It doesn't make a difference.
I did see a news brief this morning that Kamala has now signed with the same agency.
Oh, excellent.
Yes.
Dumb and Dumber. Tweedledee, Tweedledum.
6 months from now, not only is nobody going to, be thinking about Joe, Joe's not going to be thinking about Joe.
Will there be any repercussions for I think it's the biggest scam in American history, the Democrats and the media propping up someone that was blown out of his mind. Blown out.
There may be some blowback because this hasn't gotten a lot of coverage yet. I think it just happened over the last few days. But a judge has actually come out and stated that there is no legal validity to pre-pardoning somebody. So all of those pardons that Biden gave out like candy to the January 6th commission and Liz Cheney, they're not worth the paper they're written on.
Oh, shucks. Anyway, I'm actually not all that bummed out about those pardons because I heard a lawyer saying maybe it's a blessing in disguise because you can't claim the fifth if you have an executive pardon.
That's true. If you're pardoned, you cannot claim, that you're not going to answer questions because it could incriminate you. Because you've been forgiven for being incriminated. So, yeah, they can still be arrested for perjury if they testify, but they can't refuse to testify, using the Fifth Amendment.
Well, Dr. Lopkin, great show. Update our listeners on all the avenues they can reach us, contribute, all the above.
Yeah, let's hear what you have to say. Reach out to us at the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. You can also go to xvadio.com/connect. Let us know what you're thinking. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at the Carnivore Radio website, xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. Great show. I'll see you next week.
We'll see you then.